Happy Sunday, everybody. It's been a while since I've made any sort of bookish video, so I figured I'd give a little 2024 recap, life update, and then I'm gonna do my top and bottom 5 favorite and least favorite books of 2024. So, starting off with a little recap of my life. Clearly, I am not in Florida. These are not palm trees. I'm wearing long, cozy outfit because I moved back to Tennessee. I'm living in Chattanooga in the sweetest little neighborhood. We have like book club once a month and ladies wine night, and we can walk to dinner and coffee shops and restaurants and shops, and it's just exactly where I want it to be. I'm loving my new job and I'm just very happy. So that is my very quick life update. I would absolutely tell you more, but I know you don't care. You're here for books. So let's get into it. I'll start with my least favorite books of 2024. Also, most importantly, we got a swig. It's kind of far from my house, but I was out this way, so I'm going to try the famous Secret Lives of Mormon Wives drink and stuff. So yeah, in no particular order, the book I want to start with, because I just recently read it, was Wreck the Halls by Tessa Bailey. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of Tessa Bailey to begin with, but this book was just so unrealistic. The characters were so horrible. Like, the guy was okay, but like the only reason I finished this book was because I wanted to know what happened with his biological family. So this book is about, I don't even know, I shouldn't even tell you because I didn't even like it, but it's about these 2 kids who are the children of the 2 women from this famous like rock duo. I don't know. And so they like rekindle to try and like get the band back together. It's so odd, and the spicy scenes are so terrible. Didn't love. Next one is so hard for me because she's also on, sorry, the blinker. She's also on my top list. But this one of my favorite authors in the entire world. This is By Any Other Name by Jodi Picoult. And I love Jodi. I absolutely do. I think she's a phenomenal author. But this book is very niche. If you like Shakespeare, and if you even are just interested in like plays, you'll love this book. But I am not. And I did not like it because it was so long and just like so dreadful. The difference, it's about modern day playwright, and she is like trying to overpower the man, obviously, and she is the ancestor of the woman who was writing for Shakespeare, which that's a whole like conspiracy theory of it in and of itself. But I don't know, I'm just not into that, and it was so long. Yeah, the story was very, very fascinating, but I just couldn't get into it, and there were just so many parts, specifically from Amelia, who is like the old time perspective, but those parts were just a little hard. But the story was really good, and I absolutely do recommend this book if you are into either Shakespeare or just plays in general, like, and kind of like the behind the scenes and the inner workings of playwrights. It is very interesting, so I'll just leave it at that. But it was my least favorite book of Jodi Picoult, and she's my favorite author ever, so I hate to do that, but oh well. Next one, and again, these are in no particular order, is Sandwich by Catherine Newman. You've probably never heard of this book, and I truly don't know why I read it. Well, I can, and I'll blame it on Halle Bell, because I did read it for our book club. And like, it actually wasn't terrible. Like, the writing was fine. It was a fine story. Oh, there it is. There's the swig. It's about this woman who's like going through menopause, and she's just like trying to figure out life with her adult kids, and like her elderly parents are going through it. Oh my God, the line is so long. This is perfect that the line is long because it gives me time to do this in the car. It was a good story if you are a 50-year-old woman going through menopause and need to like feel relatable. I don't know, it just wasn't very captivating. The writing was fine, like it wasn't anything special, so sorry. Now, I typically like this author, and this one is The Rom-Commers by Catherine Center. Like I said, I like her. I think she's a fine like palate cleanser read, typically pretty reliable. But this book was so strange to me. It's about like this writer. I don't know why I read so many books about like playwrights and writers, but it's about this writer who's like mega famous, and he kind of like takes on this girl. I don't even remember it. I read it so long ago. And it's like her dream to work with him. She's like his biggest fan, of course. Yeah. And he turns out to be a horrible douchebag. And like the way it ended, he's like such a horrible guy, awful guy. The ending was terrible. I absolutely hated this book. So sorry. I don't know how many I've done, but The Divorcees by Rowan Baird. I'm only including it. I did DNF it, but I got so far, like more than 50%, so I can talk about it. But that's all. I don't really have anything to say. You maybe read this book if you're also reading Sandwich. It's about these women who are all like going through marital problems or like have gotten divorced. It's so bizarre. And they're like in this house together, and then they like go out sometimes to the local bar. It's so weird and boring. Sorry. Not an absolutely horrible book, but it was so popular and I just didn't love it. And it was Twisted Love by Anna. I want to say her last name starts with an H. Didn't love it. Again, the story, and I get that reading has to be unbelievable. Like, these stories are fake. But it was just too much. It's like a hockey romance. They're in college. First off, the guy's like 27 and he's like a billionaire and a CEO. And that's just, I'm sorry, it's unbelievable. And then there's all this like mafia connection with their families. And it's like spicy, but not well written. I think I listened to it. I started listening to it, switched to reading it. I think I finished listening to it. Whatever. If you're into spicy like hockey romances, go for it, but it's not like a feel-good romance. Absolutely not at all. And that's not what I was expecting going into it, but it was just so popular and I just didn't like it at all. Number 1, this is in an order. The book I hated the absolute most this year and probably hated the most of my entire life is Mistakes We Never Made by Hannah Brown. I'm sorry, but this is the worst book I've ever read. Don't do it. Don't read it. It's so bad. There's not one good thing about this book. It's just awful. The story's hard to follow. The writing's terrible and the characters suck. So, sorry. That's all. So those are my bottom. I'm going to do my top, my favorite books of the year. Hopefully. I didn't read that many phenomenal books this year. Now that is really good. I'm glad I didn't get peach in it. But that is really good. I just love a flavored water. Tastes just like, I could get that at Sonic for $1.50. You know what I mean? Like I paid $10 for a medium drink and this 12-pack of the cookies, which I'm all for it. I really wanted the pretzels, but whatever. So let's try these. They're like, they're freezing for starters. They're like frozen. This is like my ideal cookie because it's really chewy and it doesn't have a lot of chocolate chips. So 12 cookies for $3, like that's not bad. Okay, so my favorite books of 2024. I'm gonna start, because she was on the worst list and on the top, I'm gonna start with Jodi Picoult's Wish You Were Here. Phenomenal book. I am making everyone in my life read it. This book is about a woman, and her boyfriend are about to go on vacation to the Galapagos Islands, but she ends up like having to go by herself because of COVID. And they're like, he's a surgeon, I think he's like in a hospital, and so he's like, I'm sorry, I have to stay here, but you should go without me. And she's like, are you sure? And so she ends up going by herself, and she thinks she's gonna get proposed to on this trip. Like, it was supposed to be a huge trip, yada yada yada, and she goes by herself. So it's just phenomenal. The twist is so crazy, and like the storyline is so amazing. It is, the second half of the book is so COVID heavy, and I didn't love it, but the story was just so good. It made up for it. So whatever. My brother is the only person who knows this about me, but my favorite type of cookie is this. It's a chocolate chip cookie with no chocolate chips in it. Different than a sugar cookie. Very, very different. So this is it. So good. I was an ARC reader for a brand new author. Her name is Lila Morris, and she wrote this book called Strike a Pose. It's the cutest, cheesiest little romance. It's really not cheesy, actually. It's just so good. There's no like third act breakup. There's no harshness in the book at all. Our female main character is like the most famous model in the entire world. Think like, you know, Kendall Jenner. And she comes from a very successful, famous family. And then our male main character is one of the brand new, hottest, like, country music singers. And it is a friends to lovers romance. It's absolutely precious. The story is adorable. I love every single character. I know she's working on books 2 and 3, so you absolutely have to read it. I was so honored to be a part of her, like, ARC team and read this before it was published. It was seriously one of my favorite books of the year, and maybe ever. It's just such a sweet little romance, so absolutely read it. Strike a Pose by Lila Morris. Another one I was an ARC reader for was The Island of the 17 by Maria Summers. I think this book is, like, supposed to be a little young adult, but it's not. It's really not. Think Outer Banks. It is about these teenagers on this island. And the whole premise, I've actually done a whole video on it, but the whole premise is the descendants of this island were 17 people, their descendants. Once you're on the island, you cannot leave. So people come to retire, or the people who have been there, like, they're just stuck there. It's so crazy. There's treasure hunting, there's murder mystery, there's love triangle. It's so good. I ate this book up. So thank you to Maria Summers for giving me a copy of this one. Just because I have to include a spicy one in here. Oh my God, sorry, my ears always pop going up and down these mountains. And the sun is so bright. But I have to include a spicy mafia romance. And this one is gonna be The Perfect Fit by Sadie Kincaid. I love Sadie Kincaid. If you can't handle gruesome mafia, these are not the books for you. She's not the author for you. But if you need a new spicy series, The Chicago Ruthless, I've done a whole video on it. And then The Perfect Fit is crazy. It is like a male, female book. 3 billionaire best friends, and they're trying to find a girl to be their roommate, to say the least. Yeah, it's absolutely bananas. So good though. And the last one, I don't know if this was 5, but the last one is My Missing Daughter by Ellery Kane. She is one of my favorite, like, murder mystery type thriller novelists. I've actually interviewed her. She was my first author that I interviewed, and she is just a splendid, spectacular woman. This book is about these 2 young girls who decide to write a book, and it is about 2 girls who go on a road trip. And so while they're finishing their book, they live out the book, and they go on a road trip, and of course there is love, and there are plot twists, and there is a murder or 2, and it's just absolutely wild. And the book ends in the craziest way. Would not have expected it. I think Ellery just does a phenomenal job with plot twists, and again, she's one of my favorite people in the world. So yeah, those are my top and bottom books of 2024.